For the very first time on a Watching James episode, a double first impressions video. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I'm talking about watches. And today I'm talking about BOLDR watches. Watches that are getting a lot of positive attention online. And I think they're getting a lot of positive attention online for very good reasons. That is that they have an amazing range of watches, and this range of watches are priced really well. So when the guys from BOLDR reached out to me and said, hey, would you like to check out a couple of our watches? I said, yes, please. And then I went onto their website. And that's when it was quite surprising to me, because normally when I look at brands of watches, I tend to look through their range, and generally there's a few that I like. With BOLDR, there are a lot that I liked. In fact, I sent BOLDR back a list on email about this long of the amount of watches that I'd be quite happy to get some hands-on experience with. They ended up sending me 2 watches. One of those I actually get to keep, hence why you would have seen that sponsored icon. The other one has been linked into the channel so I can feature it on the channel. But the one I get to keep, I get to have in my collection, I get to wear, I get to experience, and I get to show you a bit more of an in-depth review later on. The other watch that I'm going to show you today, I'll do another review very soon, but it won't be as in-depth because I won't have had it in my collection as long-term. And guys, if you're interested in a BOLDR watch, and there's some really good reasons to be interested in BOLDR watches, I'm going to leave a link to their website down below. But now, for the first time on my channel, I'm going to be doing a double first impression video, both of BOLDR watches. Let's flip the camera and let's check out these watches. So today on the channel, for the first time, a double first impressions. I've got 2 watches here from BOLDR. One is the Voyage Antarctic, and one is the Venture Green Star. Now, both of these come with both very similar boxes. As you can see, when you open up the box, you've got a little sort of packet with some information and a polishing cloth. Inside those packages, you've got this little watch case here, a little travel pouch, which is very cool. And this one here is the Antarctic, I believe, the Antarctic. And then in the green one here, of course, we're going to have the Venture Green. When I first pulled the Voyage Antarctic out of the case, there were 5 things that stood out to me. The first one being something that's really important, which is really nice to have happen, and that is because the quality of the watch feels outstanding. The head of the watch is really nice, lots of different surfaces, really well done. The bracelet feels excellent. The clasp is also really nice, and you just have that nice weight in hand that makes me feel like it's quality. The second thing that stood out to me is actually the hands. They are really, really cool. They're all brushed. There's that big arrow there, plus a big sort of minute hand. I really like the design of it. I like how the loom infilled into those hands as well. I love the brush finish. I think it really does look really cool and is an outstanding feature of that. But it wasn't until I got it out into the sunlight that the third thing stood out to me, and that is the dial. Because inside, in the sort of studio lights here, you'll see that it is a fairly muted color, but out in the sun, it almost shines. It's this lovely transition of colors from sort of dark through to light, depending on how much sun it has. Now, the fourth thing that stood out to me was actually this sort of BOLDR line that's on here. I have to admit, I first saw it and I thought, oh, there's a scratch. I went, oh, no, it's not. It's actually the sort of the BOLDR logo thing, and it's actually really cool, and it's on all the other ones as well. The clasp as well then continues to be really nice, being all milled inside. It's actually probably one of my favorite clasps. I've seen similar ones on other watches, and I really like it when I do see this particular clasp. The last thing that really stood out to me was the crown. It has a really cool knurling on there, really easy to grab, really nice to use, and I really do appreciate it. And when I started looking a little bit more into this watch, it was just such a nice watch to sort of delve into, because firstly, this is a no-date watch, but it has the NH38 Seiko movement in it, which means it has hand winding, but it also means no ghost position and hacking. A great option chosen by BOLDR here. It also has a 40mm case diameter, which I really like, 200 meters of water resistance, and what I didn't expect for a watch at this price, sapphire crystal, that I expected, but then sapphire crystal on the back as well. Yes, a sapphire sandwich today, which is really nice, but it's actually the quality that really stood out to me. I love sort of how the mix of the polishing and the brushing there. We've got like a vertical brush, polishing underneath, polishing around the sides, and I just think it's a very cool watch. It's one of these watches that I think could be very much your everyday watch. And on wrist, it just has a really nice wrist presence. Having those sort of male end links does actually make it sit probably a little bit bigger on wrist, but on my 6 3/4 or around about 17 centimeter wrists, it's perfectly fine, and I really appreciate it, and I really enjoy it. It just has that nice wrist presence. When I pulled out the Venture Green Star from its packaging, there were 6 things that stood out to me. First is just how light this watch is. Now, this is an all titanium watch, but I get the feeling that the sort of idea of it being a light watch is at the forefront of the ideas behind this, because not only is it all titanium making it quite light, but the overall size and dimensions of this watch being a little bit smaller, being a 38mm. If you look at the bracelet itself, it's actually quite thin as well. All those sort of parts coming together to make it a really lightweight watch, lighter than most of the titanium watches that I've experienced. But the second thing that stood out to me is this beautiful green, and there's a bunch of different greens because we've got a green dial, a 2-part green bezel insert there, a dark green sort of a minute hand, and you bring all these greens together and it just looks really good. The third thing is actually the bezel action, because the bezel action of this watch, of a titanium watch, is really nice. No backplay whatsoever, no movement, and it just actually feels quite nice. And I think titanium watches tend to have a bit of a bad rap when it comes to bezel action. This one, really nice. The fourth thing that stood out to me was when I was sizing this bracelet, those screw links there are tiny. It's not a bad thing by any means, but just be aware they are very tiny, these screws. It took me a little bit longer to resize this one than previous watches, just because they were so small. A very nice bracelet though, feels really nice in hand. That sort of titanium coating has a really nice feel, but it leads me into probably the fifth thing that stood out to me was the clasp. Probably not my favorite clasp. I'm not sure if it is titanium as well, but it sort of feels like slightly one of those generic ones. And unfortunately, it is a pressed clasp. And I guess it's okay. It feels certainly secure. It's got 3 levels of micro adjust, but it's probably not my favorite clasp so far. However, I do like how they have that sort of a bolder, sort of wiggly line there. But that leads me into the last thing that really stood out to me, and that was the crown. Again, it's got this sort of double knurled area and a green line in it. It's nice that they're sort of tying this watch together with all the green elements. Now, this one on the website, it actually says it has an NH35 movement, which is a Seiko movement with a day date or a date sort of a complication. This is obviously a no date watch. However, there's no ghost position. So I think this one contains the NH38, and maybe they just haven't updated their website. But as you can see, hand winding and hacking. I just think it's a great looking watch, and you get to see that underneath that sapphire crystal, which is nice. Has that sort of bead blasted titanium sort of look that quite a few sort of titanium watches have, slightly darker metal sort of look, and it just looks really cool and really sort of matches in with that green nicely. I just can't believe how light this watch is, however. I am really looking forward to seeing what this one is on the scales. When I do the full review of this one, I will definitely be showing you what the weight is. Because on wrist, you could almost forget that you actually have a watch on your wrist. It's that light, and it fits and looks really nice on wrist, I have to say. That 38mm with that sort of a straight down edge, how the bracelet then conforms to wrist, really does have a nice feel on wrist. Very light, but very, very comfortable. So now I have to make a hard decision. I need to pick which one I want to keep and which one is just going to be lent to me. I am going to review both watches, but whenever I do get a watch and that is lent to me, it doesn't tend to be probably as in-depth of a review because I haven't been able to wear it as long. So one of these I'll have for a couple of months before a review. The other one I'll probably review in the next couple of weeks. So whilst I make the decision about which one of these I'm going to keep, maybe check out these videos next.